This is going to make you angry, but you need to know, so I'm going to tell you. You are for sale, and by you, I mean your personal information. Not just your name or your phone number, but your date of birth, your education, where you were educated, what courses you did, your IP address, which can allow people to track you around on the internet, your national insurance number, your email addresses, even your home address, right down to your shopping habits and your financial information. All of this information is for sale. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree to it or not, there are businesses that operate specifically to sell your information to the highest bidder. There are lots of cases in the news where data brokers, as they are known, have been selling your information to the highest bidder and not always being as careful as they perhaps should be as to whom they sell this information to. Meaning, in a nutshell, this information can end up in the hands of scammers who are then in turn using that information not just to sell things to you, but to try to steal your identity. Now, many of you will think that not much of your information is available, so surely no one's going to have that much information on you. But even with 1 or 2 bits of information, and even when you buy something or even pay for your utility bills, for example, I have just recently been informed that one of my utility companies has had a data breach, which included my name, my address, and my financial information as to how I pay for those bills. But not only that, a year or so ago, another company from whom I bought something also suffered a data breach in that some of their information was sold/leaked/hacked to the wrong party, and therefore was in the wrong hands. Now, data leaks are one thing, but data being sold is an entirely other kind of insult to your personal security. Many of these companies are selling your information on to the highest bidder. And there are hundreds of these companies around the country. There are, of course, laws in place, including GDPR, the retained version in the United Kingdom, at least unless and until it is revamped with an entirely new data protection regime. At the moment, we still have the Data Protection Act and the GDPR UK retained version as it currently stands. This means that you have the right of erasure, you have the right of correction, you have the right of access, you have the right to be informed if this information is being gathered about you in the first place. But how are you to know where your data is and how to go about exercising those rights? Predominantly the right of erasure. So I was particularly interested in this, and I am pleased to tell you that I've partnered in this video with Incogni, which has specifically set about targeting this practice of data brokers selling on your information. Because if I were to challenge you to name any of these companies that sell on your data, I'm fairly sure that you probably wouldn't be able to name any of them. Even if you can name 1 or 2, you wouldn't know the hundreds of them that are out there selling your information day to day. What do they do with this information? Well, they can assume your identity if they have enough information about you. Reports have shown that they take out loans in your name, only they get the money to go to a different account, which also happens to be in your name, but is obviously accessed by the scammers. Only then they provide your address for the repayment, and the companies come to you looking for the money. You then end up in the situation where you have to prove that you didn't take out this loan in the first place. You might even have to go to court to try to prove that you didn't take out this money in the first place. And this goes far beyond just identity theft for taking out money in your name as well. Sometimes people will assume your personality and literally impersonate you when committing other kinds of crime. That means if and when the authorities come looking for that person that committed that crime, they might well have your details, your information, your address, and come looking for you. And once again, if they have sufficient proof to be accusing you of certain crimes, you may then again be left in the position to defend yourself for something that you didn't do, which is not only going to be stressful and time consuming, but it's going to be relatively expensive if you want to get adequate representation to defend yourself from crimes that you believe you certainly did not commit. So as I said, I'm very pleased to have partnered with Incogni to get you a discount for the first 100 people that sign up for 20% discount with my unique code, which is, of course, BlackBeltBarrister, which you'll find on screen and you'll find it in the description below. So what exactly does Incogni do and how can it help you? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think you would struggle, as I indeed struggled, because I looked for this after my data breach. I had 2 data breaches. I was looking for those that might have my information so that I can write to them and demand that it's erased in accordance with my data protection rights, the right of erasure under GDPR. But I couldn't find any, and I didn't know where to look for these data brokers because I'm not in the market of buying or selling data, so I had no idea where to look and where to start. Incogni, on the other hand, has a database and contact details of each of these data brokers, and they will contact them all automatically on your behalf to insist that they comply with your right of erasure, to delete all of your information off their servers and to prevent them from selling it on to future buyers. I am genuinely going through the process right now. I've had 78 requests sent to erase my data from various data brokers, of whom 21 have replied so far to confirm either that they don't hold my information or that they've complied with the legal request to erase my data from their servers. If you sign up with Incogni, you will see a list of these companies and against it a rating of the data sensitivity of the data that they hold on you. Rated from 1 to 10 on the type and sensitivity of the data collected. For example, they might collect specific ID numbers such as your national insurance number, bank details, direct debit details, card details, and all of these kind of things. And these ratings will give you an idea as to how many companies have got your personal information, but also in one simple automated process will write to each and every one of them to insist that they erase your data from their servers in accordance with your GDPR rights. Now, just to give you one very real story, obviously without the client details because I'm not permitted to do that, but I can tell you about the story because it's a very real story. It's a real client that came to us with a real problem resulting in having her data stolen, sold on, and then somebody impersonating her. So this client came to us having had her data obviously sold on to another party and obviously committing some kind of offence. Now, she ended up on the fraud database, meaning that this database shared her details with various different banking organisations to say that this data set of hers was involved in some kind of fraud. This resulted in her not being able to get any form of credit whatsoever, any form of bank account or any kind of account that held money whatsoever, and she ended up on this fraud database, which is accessed by a great number of companies that want to do a background check on somebody to determine whether or not this person is a risk. Now, as a result, this client could not so much as get a mobile phone contract, they could certainly not get a credit card, they couldn't even get a bank account. They had to rely on a friend or friends or family with whom she would make these arrangements to pay for her bills when they came in, because she simply couldn't get anything in her name because her data had been used and stolen, and as a result she couldn't open any account with anyone anywhere. This then began the long process of rebuilding her reputation, writing individually to all sorts of companies like this to explain the situation. All of which because her data was sold on and got into the wrong hands, and once it's out on what they call the dark web, that's it. You'll really struggle to get this information erased because it will always find its way back one way or another. So even if your information is not in the wrong hands at the moment, if it is being sold on 3 or 4, 5, 10, 15 times, eventually it may end up in the wrong place, in the wrong hands, and there's not much you can do about it. What you can do about it at the moment is to take the preemptive step. Now, you know on my channel I will never bring something to you as a partner to one of my videos unless I truly believe it's offering a service or a product that I think is valuable. But take my word for it, in this instance it will be far easier to have a one-step automated process to erase your data from all of these data brokers so that you don't don't end up in the news like all of these other companies that are having data leaks, data breaches, hacks and scandals, and hundreds of millions of sets of data ending up in the wrong hands. So take my word for it and do yourself a favor, sign up at the link in the description below. These are genuine stories, not just from me, but from clients of ours as well, that have run into these problems, and it is very difficult to sort it out afterwards. And with that, and one video at a time, I'm helping you to avoid these scams. So please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching.